Welcome to the Basic Web Developer course bonus webinar with myself and Jerry Humphrey.
Hi.
And today basically is, like I said, it's all about giving content or value to those that are basically building websites for clients. So if that's what you're doing, or even if you're doing it for yourself, I suppose this would be valuable to you as well. However, the content is really more geared towards those who are offering services to others. So today's agenda. Number one, we're going to talk about mobile websites, just a general overview. We're not going to get into hardcore coding of mobile websites, but we'll just talk about some of the challenges that mobile website design presents, some of the direction that mobile's going, and just basically just some of the general things that you need to consider if you are either A, building a mobile website yourself, or B, which is probably more likely the case unless you're more advanced, you're probably going to be purchasing some type of code and or product that you can use basically to build a site for a client. There's a lot of applications out there, including our own. Some that are WordPress based, some that are not, some that have online WYSIWYG type content management editors, some that don't, etc. We'll talk a little bit about some of what's available out there to you and kind of the pros and cons of each. We're going to get into pricing and marketing strategies specifically for those basically hanging their hat as a web developer. We're going to talk about outsourcing the technical work. I'm sure that Jerry will have some really good input on this as well, and along with everything else. Outsourcing content generation. Content obviously is something that becomes part of every single website project you do, and it's something that a lot of website designers and web developers simply just they overlook, and I think that's important that you don't. In addition to that, we're going to talk about some other revenue streams that are available to you and just give you some ideas that you may not have thought about that might help you basically earn more money in your web development business. So with that, mobile websites. Here on this particular page, again, you're just looking at 10 of our brand new mobile landing pages. We call these the tap to call landing pages because primarily the main focus for the visitor is to tap basically this larger button to immediately then fire up the phone utility of the smartphone that's accessing the page and immediately place a call to the business. These are very simplistic, but to kind of give you an idea. So when you're looking at mobile web development, there's a bunch of stuff to consider. Obviously, one of the first things and one of the challenges, obviously, is that all of these devices have different sizes. Smartphones, even inside of the smartphone class, have different screen sizes. But what you're looking at here is basically an iPhone image, which has a pixel width in the portrait of 320 pixels in width. Of course, the next complexity, the next challenge basically is that the user, as you well know, has the ability to turn the device on its side in landscape mode, and of course then the screen width becomes different, it becomes larger. So in the past, in all of the web development stuff that we've talked about a fixed width layout design. That no longer works for mobile, unless of course you were specifically designing one only for a phone in portrait mode, which would make no sense, because if that was the case and as soon as they turn their phone into landscape mode, the layout would no longer look attractive. The same thing of course goes on in regards to tablets. So user might be using an iPad or a Kindle Fire or one of the many Android tablets out there, and those obviously all have different screen widths, and almost all of them have the ability to do the same thing as the smartphone, the ability to tip the screen into either portrait or landscape mode. So one of the first things that you're going to have to consider is no longer coding a fixed width layout. So in regards to creating a layout for mobile, there's kind of two general coding principles, at least at the moment, and Jerry, let's see if I can speak. Feel free to correct me if I misspeak, because while I do, and obviously I am very active in this market, I do lean to Jerry and our other coder Al for much input, because they have coding experience in this area far exceeding my own. But primarily, there's two different type of coding platforms. One one called Fluid, or Fluid Layout, and another called Responsive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the actual code for one of these pages, and we'll just take a look at it here in Edit Plus. So this is the index.php page that builds one of the landing pages that you're looking at on the screen just a second ago. And you're going to notice that there's a number of new items, probably things that you haven't seen before. One of the first is going to be this particular doc type declaration up here at the top. And you're going to see that it's just slightly different. This particular template is built in XHTML, but you can see that the doc type declaration, or short for DTD, says that it is mobile 1.2. So this is a specific document type declaration that's specifically telling the browser that the intent of this page is to build a mobile website as opposed to a traditional, XHTML 1.0 transitional or strict, etc. Desktop or laptop device. Again, just understand that just by the switching out of the doc type alone, that one statement, the browser will very often display the content differently. The browser looks to this doc type to make a determination in regards to what the intent was of the coder, and then it does its best job to render the page according to the doc type. So we'll send out some text information, probably going to send out a lot of text information along with this video in regards to a lot of the resources that we've talked about. And one of the things I'll do is just send out this doc type declaration itself. You can see that it comes from a different website than we're normally used to. We're normally used to seeing the W3C website called out here in the doc type. In this particular instance, it's the openmobilealliance.org. And if you go to openmobilealliance.org, you'll see that it's an authority site basically for mobile development. It's very, very complex. It's a very geeky site, but there's lots of quality current information in regards to mobile on this particular site, openmobilealliance.org. Down lower, you'll see some new things that you probably haven't seen before. Here's a meta statement. Talks about being handheld friendly, content equals true. Next one down says that this is mobile optimized. The next one down talks about the viewport, and it starts giving certain descriptions in the attributes. The content for this is the width equals device width. Minimum scale is basically 100% or 1.0. Maximum scale is 2.0. So it's kind of dictating to the browser the scale as the device size changes. That's basically about as much as I can define for you myself in regards to those three. But we'll send out the meta information and probably a little bit more information specifically about what each of those three statements actually mean and do. Down lower, actually, realistically, there's not a whole lot on this page that's all that different from a normal desktop design. The real difference happens in the style sheet. So over here for the style sheet of the page, I'll scroll down a little bit so we can look at kind of the main layout section, which you see here. You're going to start seeing some different values than we've discussed before. In the past, most everything that we were discussing had a finite value. By that I mean when we were calling out like a font size, we were actually calling it out in a particular pixel size. Here you see that for the entire body text, unless it's styled differently or more specifically elsewhere, the font size is called out to be 100%. That can get confusing if you're not used to fluid layouts, because the question then becomes, okay, well, what does 100% represent? For most desktop designs, just so you know, a font size of 100% is roughly a font size of 14 pixels. So this is the equivalent of saying 14 pixels. Well, why wouldn't you just put 14 pixels then, becomes the next question generally. And the answer is this. In order to keep things fluid, we're trying to use things that aren't fixed, I guess that's one thing. Another thing to consider is that each browser has the ability to set the font size by default. So basically this is saying to use the default font size for anything that's found between the body tags, unless of course it's styled differently below. That's the first thing I should point out. If we styled it at 14 pixels, it becomes a fixed value, overriding the default of the browser, and it causes issues. We want our content basically to be able to be live, to be fluid, to be able to grow and shrink depending upon the user's screen, etc. Same thing with line height. Instead of setting an exact value, now we've used, in this case, what's called an M. See right here, it's 1.4 EM. And here we come to another layer of complexity in regards to something that I don't think we've talked about before. What is an M? An M is the average height of the capital letter M for the particular font that's being listed. So in this case, if you look up here at the font family, it's trying to use the PT Sans font type first. If it can't, it'll try to use Helvetica. If it can't, it will try to use Arial. And if it doesn't have any of these, it'll use sans serif. I guess I should make one other point in regards to this, because in this case, all of this fallback information really should not be needed, although it is a good safe practice to include it anyway. But if I scroll up higher, and I'm using my arrow key because the GoToWebinar panels is hiding my scroll bar at this point. If we go right up to the top of this particular file, I don't think we've talked about Google Fonts before, so it's a good time to just mention it. We're using a Google font, which is basically just a free font that you can use commercially from Google. It's google.com/webfonts is the actual URL. And basically we've decided to use the PT Sans font for our mobile sites, and you'll see that there's this @import statement right here. So basically when this style sheet gets loaded, also import from this particular URL, go basically to this particular URL and import basically the PT Sans font family. Google Fonts are cool because no longer are you basically stuck with trying to use either what they call web-safe fonts, meaning the basic ones that are typically included with most browsers or on most computers, rather. You can actually choose to use some different fonts, but still be relatively secure in the fact that your font is going to display the way you want. Because what's basically happening in the background is the browser is going to this particular URL over at Google, and it's importing that font for the visitor, and then it uses it for rendering on our pages. Because of that, this particular font doesn't have to reside on our visitor's machine, where typically that would be the case unless you're using some other type of font substitution. Jerry and I, neither one, we're just so you know, there are two other frequently used font substitution. There's several, but there's two others that are frequently used. One is called Sifr, S-I-F-R, and the other is called Kufon. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that the way most people pronounce it, but maybe Jerry knows it's Kufon or Kufon. I don't know what it is, but it's C-U-F-O-N. Both of those are basically font replacement technologies by which the the fonts used on your page will render the way that you want them to the visitor, even if the visitor doesn't have it on its machine. So in that respect, it's similar to using a Google font. The difference between both of those is that they use up more server resources, and they typically have, and I forget the technical term, but they typically cause flicker, so that when you reload the page, the process in the background that's basically turns the font into more like an image that can be used on the site. And as a result of that process, you'll typically see a lot of sites that are using either Cipher or Kufon. You'll see that they cause a flicker effect as the page is loading. Jerry and I try to avoid the use of both of those, if at all possible, and typically it is possible. One of the easiest ways is just to simply use a Google font. So I kind of got a little sidetracked, but I think that was a good thing to point out. Going back to the layout, we talked about PT Sans being the font that's currently being used, and we talked about these M's. So the M, again, is the average height of the capital letter M for the particular font. So 1.4 M is basically saying to increase the line height, the space between lines of text, by 1.4 times the height of the capital letter M. So I guess if you just want to play around with it, if you do 1.1 M, the space between the lines will become smaller, and if you did 1.8 M, the space between the lines would become larger. The reason why this is important to point out is, again, it is a fluid measurement, because if the font used in a different area was greater than 100%, the M height then is proportional. It's based on the font height. So 1.4 M line height of a 14 pixel font is different than 1.4 M of a 24 pixel font. It would grow even larger in line height. So it's a fluid arrangement, basically. You see down here with the wrapper div, you'll see that we've caused the wrapper to be 100% in width. But lower on, you'll see some other changes. For the footer div, you'll see that we've called it out as 90% width. For the footer paragraph with a class of legal terms, the font size now is 95%, so we want it to be smaller than the default size. So you can start seeing some of these fluid arrangements anytime that you're looking at these percentage callouts, or you're looking at anything that has like an M value. You'll know that basically it's a fluid type of arrangement, as opposed to using something like this, where this is hard-coded. The margin for this was still hard-coded, and you'll see that there are some things that are hard-coded because they work that way, or they don't basically cause issues with our layout. But other things like an actual button on the site, the max width is basically kept to 95%. And all that basically means is it's 95% of the screen width. So when the screen of the mobile device is in portrait mode, 95% of that width, approximately 320 pixels, is something less than 320. If you flip the device on its side in landscape mode, then 95% becomes much larger than it would be in portrait mode. But the important thing to note is, because it's less than 100%, the button will always basically be seen. You can see the entire edges of the button, regardless of whether the device is in portrait or landscape mode. The actual width of the button can grow accordingly. So can other content that's basically called out to be fluid, but it's going to be something that's going to make sure that the actual button stays visible without the user having to scroll left to right. Yes, Birthday Boy, did you want to say something?
We got a question asking, what is the wrapper? Because we really haven't shown the context of that in this use.
Okay. Go back over to the actual file. So if we look at the actual file itself, this is again is the index page for the mobile tap to call landing page that I just showed you, you'll see that we have the body gets opened here. The very next div is the wrapper. It's basically the container that contains everything else as far as what's seen visually on the page. So let me go back here. In visual terms, you can think of it as the area that is controlling the background. So everything is basically being held inside of the wrapper, which is called out at 100% because we want it to fill the entire screen regardless of whether it's in portrait or landscape mode. Elements inside of it are now called out typically to be something less, except in this case we are using a 100% value for the main image. So the 100% value for the main image, you can see that the main image is flowing to the edge of the screen left and right, and the same would happen if you tilt the device on its side. The size of this image would grow to fill the screen with. It looks, these particular layouts obviously look a whole lot better on a smartphone type device than they do on a large tablet, but you get the idea. This is really mobile design that's primarily set up for smartphones, although they do look decent on tablets. They're primarily really set up for smartphones. Our normal Mobile Web Pro package doesn't use the growing images. The images stay in a fixed size, and there's some challenges there as well, or basically not challenges, but just hurdles to overcome, because once you start viewing it on a larger device like an iPad, you kind of do want some of the things to grow because you have, more screen real estate to take up. But it's just some of the challenges that you're going to run into if you start doing mobile development. So again, this is just a general overview. We're not getting into hardcore mobile coding, but I did want to just point out some of the differences. If you try to use just a regular fixed layout, you're going to run into all sorts of issues in terms of doing that. So if you have, probably for most of you, you're probably going to be using some current piece of technology, whether it's ours or a mobile friendly WordPress theme or some other mobile site builder out there. There are a variety of them and growing because the mobile market is growing incredibly fast. But that said, I guess I should point out, I didn't open it up already, but one of the things to remember as a web developer and as a business person in general, there are going to be areas in which you excel. There's going to be areas in which you are maybe okay at, and there's going to be some areas in which you probably shouldn't be actually doing work in that particular area specifically, and that's the case for everybody. That's not to demean anybody. Everybody has them, including myself and Jerry. We all have our strengths, is basically what I'm saying. So it's wise business to play to your strengths, be cognizant of those areas where you're not as strong or are truthfully weak, and then find competent providers to outsource that work too. We're going to be talking more about outsourcing as we go along too, but if I go to, I'm just going to go to Google, and actually I'm going to just type in PSD, the number 2, HTML.com. I think I've discussed this in the past, but if I haven't, there's a number of options to do this work. PSD to HTML is one of the more premium ones. They do have, in my opinion, decent but higher than average kind of prices. When we typically want to do this, if we don't do it in-house, if we're looking to get something coded because we're too busy to do it, or because it's more complex than we want to even get into, we'll use a place like PSD to HTML, or maybe Code My Concept. Code My Concept is typically the place that we go to first, and I can show that too. But if you have a PSD image, whether you or your graphic designer created it or whether you went and purchased it with the rights to be able to code it, you can go to a coding house, basically like PSD to HTML, and get it coded for very reasonable prices. So it's been a while since I've been over here. Let's go to Order Now and take a look at their options. As mobile has become something that's so much more prominent, we're definitely very likely going to find the ability to get it coded for mobile. So we'll see here in just a second. All right, so it looks like if we send them just a one-page PSD, a Photoshop graphics file, we can get it in valid XHTML 1.0 transitional for $159 over here. You'll see, let's see, down here, their hot offer for $100 basically. Their basic package is a fixed width layout with no extra options. So obviously this is not going to work. This is fixed width only. Over here, it doesn't specifically say fluid, but I would be willing to bet that that's the case. Right here, though, I do see mobile template. And if we talk about mobile template now, it looks like the price goes to $179, but you do have the ability to get a mobile template done from this basically provider for about $180. You will notice, and that might surprise some of you, but you will notice that it is in XHTML. While HTML5, and you can see it's offered over here. HTML5 is offered for a little bit more money. You can see it says it's compatible with a few more different mobile browsers. Still, depending upon what you're trying to incorporate in your template, I just might caution you to use HTML5 at this point, because there are some specific things inside of HTML5 that are still not standardized, and you might find that you have issues if you use HTML5 code at this point. But you can make that determination whether you want to get it coded in XHTML or HTML5. And this is a very good way basically to get into the mobile design marketplace without actually having to know at this point how to code the PSD from start to finish. You use those people who specialize in this and do nothing but this basically day in and day out. If I jump over to Code My Concept real quick, it's codemyconcept.com. This is the outfit that we typically use if we do not code it ourselves. And let's see, we can go to their Order Now page. All right, so PSD to HTML or theme. Not sure if we're going to see a mobile related option or here. Layout options. Okay, so here you can see that they'll code it in either fixed or flexible. A flexible width adds $20 to the cost, but it's not. I don't see anything here specifically at the moment. It's actually calling it out as mobile. You can see that you can get your code basically converted for WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, Magento, Shopify, etc. if you're doing e-commerce stuff. But regardless, I don't actually see mobile over here. So you might need to kind of look that up if you want to do that. But if you're not using someone's technology basically to a template or some type of a mobile system that you can basically just drop your content into and know that it's going to produce a mobile-friendly design, this is something that you might want to consider doing, is basically having the design done as the PSD and then basically sending it over to a place like PSD to HTML to get them to code it to be a mobile-friendly template. Let's see. Let me take a quick look at my notes. Other information in regards to mobile. We'll get over to another piece of code here in just a second. We talked about fluid. We're going to also talk about responsive layouts, and I'll show you one here live in just a second. couple other things to consider. Number one, I would say I would absolutely use no flash on any site that you wanted to be mobile friendly. That's because Apple has taken a very hard line, and they do not want to support Flash, will not support Flash on any of their devices. And if you look at the stats are pretty much such that Apple owns the lion's share of the mobile market between the iPhone, the iPod Touch, and the iPad. Not to say that there aren't a significant amount of Android devices out there as well, and some of those do support Flash. That said, if you're using Flash, you're basically just guaranteeing yourself that your content isn't going to be shown as you desire to Apple devices, which in my opinion just makes no sense at all. Some of the goals that you're going to have when you create a mobile design, I think number one, you want to have each one of your pages to be as small in file size as possible, and both this particular topic and the next one I'm going to mention really refer to the same thing, and that's load time. You also want to create as few HTTP requests as possible. An HTTP request is basically encountered anytime that the server has to go, or anytime the browser basically has to go back to the server to retrieve an element of your page in order to build it. So in this case, the logo image, the main image, and this one real small phone icon, there's 3 images on this page. So this basically brings up 3 separate HTTP requests. 3 separate times basically the browser has to go to the server to retrieve the image content to supply it back to the actual mobile visitor. We get asked quite a lot, Jerry and I do, well, what about using background images? And from a technical standpoint, it can be done. The problem is, of course, it creates yet another HTTP request. So when we built these with some flexibility, the ability to easily turn off the phone icon. So if you don't want to show it, or if you don't want to show it either because you don't like it or because you don't want to cause another HTTP request, it's easy to turn off. The buttons that you're looking at, they look like images, but they're not. They're simply built in CSS, and as a result, they cause no HTTP requests. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, these are simple pages, but if you think about just the methodology or the thought process behind it, we built them. The color in the background is a CSS color, which of course makes it easy to switch out. And in addition to that, again, it does not cause an HTTP request. So just think about the fact that you're going to need to educate your clients a lot at times too, because some of them will become very just unrealistic in terms of what it is that they want for their mobile website. Some of them, want to use a ton of images and a ton of videos on one particular page, and or images that are way too high in file size. We've talked about the optimization of images in the past, but it's something that is even more important for mobile. Either you or your graphic designer should make sure that the images for mobile are optimized. Basically, it just means that they are compressed as much as possible to deliver, an acceptable quality while maintaining basically the smallest physical file size as possible. Because just let's face it, mobile devices, while they are incredibly powerful, they are also nowhere near as powerful in terms of desktop and laptops, in terms of obviously how much disk space they have, their speeds, the functionality of the browsers, etc. They're all basically light versions of desktops and laptops, and you shouldn't be trying to basically replicate the entire mobile site or the entire regular site as mobile, at least in my opinion. You want to deliver the most important content that's relevant to the business, and then allow that individual to either see the full site or find the information that they're looking for in terms of contact or whatever information they need to make an informed decision in terms of doing business with that particular company behind the website. Another thing to think of is the fact that you want to optimize for touch screens. So I say that to say, if you think about your own device in your own hands, buttons that are really tiny or two buttons that are really tight together, you can see that we've allotted some decent space between these two such that someone can click the tap to call button without accidentally clicking the button that takes them to the full mobile website. These are other things to think of. You don't want a bunch of links that the user is basically going to depress with their finger or thumb primarily really close together. Otherwise, you're going to take them all sorts of places that they didn't mean to go, and that just adds to frustration. So going back to layouts, this is the last thing that I have on my list to say about mobile. We talked about fluid layouts, but there's a new coding platform referred to as responsive, or also called adaptive by some developers. And I'm going to show you one over here. This is called Skeleton, and there's a variety of these out there. This is just one that I've played around with a bit and have actually grown to like. We're planning on taking this and developing this further. One of the cool things about Skeleton, of course, first thing is that the gentleman that coded this, he works for Twitter. He's a full-time employee for Twitter, and a talented coder, and a guy that basically put his code out there into the open source marketplace. So you can build websites around his code and build them for commercial sites or for yourself, etc. So this is a responsive layout, and responsive is different from fluid. Fluid, basically, if you can think of fluid, it allows us primarily the content, the text, to size down and up within a particular range. Responsive now becomes a whole entirely different animal. If we take a look at this layout, you'll see that we have, well, up here we have 3 lines of text at the moment. Down here we have an image to the left, and we have text over here to the right of this image. If I scroll down further, you can see that we have now 3 images stacked above each other. Again, content to the right. Shows a little bit about the grid. This is actually based on the 960 grid that I showed you during the PSD coding portion of our training, which is cool. I like the 960 grid, so I like the fact that I already understand how to work within it. See some typography things, the different sizing for headings, etc. But here's where this is definitely way different than simply just a fluid design. If I take my browser and I allow it to be restored down, I'm going to grab it and pull it out, you're going to start seeing the content start to not only change in size. Right there's a definite change in size of the height of this font, but you're going to see other changes happen as well. If we go really small, you'll see that no longer do we have 3 lines of text. Now we have 5. If I scroll down now here, you'll notice that the text that was to the right of the image is now underneath it, and the image sizes have been allowed to basically stay pretty close to the same size that they were during the full size layout. And that's really cool, because basically the intent of this code is to allow you to build, and you can use it one of 2 ways. You can use this code to build as a base, basically to build a mobile website that you would then use a device detect and redirect script, basically a script that gets placed on the main or full website that determines that the visitor is coming from a mobile site, and then it automatically redirects them to the mobile. You can use it that way, or you can of course use this as your primary site coding, with the understanding that even if the user is using the device on a mobile, that the content is going to start laying out very nicely for them. You'll notice that regardless of what I do with the screen width, that nowhere is, you're not seeing a horizontal scroll bar appear, even if this becomes quite narrow. Okay, I've got it now. You can see the horizontal scroll bar has appeared now, but I can guarantee you that the width is actually smaller than a smartphone. When it goes away, right about here, you're about the width of the normal iPhone or smartphone in its um, portfolio setting, such that you're never going to get a horizontal scroll bar appear on a mobile device with this code, which is one of the big things to consider. You don't want people to have to scroll left and right as well as up and down, and you certainly don't want people to have to pinch and grab and expand areas to maneuver on the site. So that's the difference between responsive and fluid. It is fluid, but it's more than fluid. It's actually causing elements to reorder or to relay out, as opposed to just trying to shrink them in width or grow them in width depending upon the actual screen width of the browser. So this code is over here at getskeleton.com. We'll send out this information along with everything else when we send out the resource document. Yeah, Jerry.
I was just going to point out one of the things about Skeleton versus you've maybe seen like responsive WordPress sites is it's very, very lightweight. It's very tiny and such. And the problem gets to be is like we were talking just a minute ago, Kevin was saying about you don't want a bloated mobile site. So just because your WordPress site is responsive doesn't mean it's a good match for mobile. So just want to kind of point out that about responsive mobile.
Yep, absolutely. So Jerry just sparked another thought in my head, and it's something else that's good to point out both to you as well as something that you need to know when talking to clients, because what Jerry just said is extremely important to understand. Just the fact that this particular layout happens to be quote-unquote responsive does not necessarily mean that a responsive or an adaptive layout is a good solution for a mobile device. And you might think, well, I don't understand. That seems like that was the reason they developed it to begin with, and that's true. The problem is that there seems to be a very large disconnect, and I certainly don't want to offend anybody, but I can tell you right now, we have a web design, graphic design, advertising design, commercial photography business, and have for now over 15 years. We are into design, so I'm like you, I like nice design. However, a lot of designers out there, they mess up the connection between form and function. There is always a connection between any design, whether that's a website or the chair that you're sitting in right now. There's a connection between the actual form or the appearance or the attractiveness of the form itself, and then of course there's the function of the form. If you're sitting in a chair that looks great and is horribly uncomfortable to sit in, it's not that great of a chair. I don't care how pretty it may be to look at. The same exact thing is true of websites. So frequently, especially when it comes to clients, most of them are incredibly uneducated in regards to web coding or technologies or development understanding, and I'm not saying that they should be. That's normal. They got to focus on what they have to focus on. But the problem is that there's a whole lot of web designers out there that are also very clueless in regards to the actual function of things. They might have the greatest sense of visual design. They might create pretty, but if pretty doesn't translate to something that actually is usable by the end user, something that allows them to get quick access to content and navigate properly and gets the visitor to more often than not take the desired action of the business owner that owns the website, then I don't care how attractive it is, it's a failure in my opinion as in regards to the quality of the website design. It's not that the design itself might be beautiful, but if it doesn't actually function properly, then then it's no good. So one of the challenges, or one of the things to think about when you're looking at responsive or adaptive designs, is basically what they're trying to do is create this catch-all, this one bit of code that has the ability to no longer need a quote-unquote mobile-friendly version of the site. It's just a one-size-fits-all. The problem is that even though the code itself of Skeleton is responsive in as much as it lays itself out differently depending upon the screen width, it can, even Skeleton can be overloaded. So these images you can see right here, these images are incredibly simple, extremely low in file size, etc. But if I went and put 20 images on a page and they were all larger than this and really high resolution, etc., and each one of them took up, I don't know, 30 to 50K, and there was 10 of them on a page, that page then becomes very unfriendly to mobile. Even though the layout's responsive, the file size now has grown way too large. It's causing way too many HTTP requests, etc., etc. And so even though the code itself might be responsive and when the page finally loads, it might look just fine, the problem is that there's going to be function issues. And that's just one thing that's really important for you and your clients to know, because it comes up for us. Hey, oh great, you can build me a mobile site. Now you're going to build me a mobile site that replicates my full site, does everything that my normal site does for mobile. And it's just not a realistic goal, at least not at this point, if you're trying to build a site that's going to work well for smartphones specifically, because they just don't have the horsepower that a desktop, laptop, or even some of the tablets have. So just start thinking about that. Same thing, I guess, also goes into other issues. We talked about avoidance of flash. You can put flash on this main website now, and it might work perfectly on a desktop or a laptop system, but even though that flash element might remain responsive, it's no longer going to work on an Apple device. So just because you're using responsive or adaptive code does not necessarily, I think that's the point Jerry was trying to make and trying to make sure that I made clear. And just because you're using responsive code does not necessarily mean that the overall site or page that you're building is truthfully mobile friendly, because it's more than just layout. It's also accessibility to content. And if you're using Flash on it and the content becomes inaccessible, then that's a failure. If the content's not accessible because it takes 5 minutes for the page to load, then that's a failure too, regardless of whether it will load beautifully or not within 5 minutes. Really becomes a moot point. So Jerry, I think that's all I have on mobile stuff. We have any questions, or you want to add anything? Now's the time.
Don't have any questions right now. Somebody's got one, just put it up. But the slight thing, addition to what Kevin was going over, is in the U.S. they're moving away from unlimited data. Most other countries are already gone away from that. So you can't just load up your mobile site like crazy and expect people to really want to go there. It's something new to also be taking into consideration. I think most carriers now are not signing up new unlimited data customers. So you're going to get to the point to where people are going to start to shift from wanting everything in a mobile site. They want the information, they want it fast, and they want it small.
Good point. It also happens to be a topic for mobile SEO.
Yes.
So the faster your pages load, the more likely you're going to get benefit, basically, from the search engines in terms of search engine placement for mobile. Wow. You hear my puppy bark?
Yep.
Wow. She's a husky. She hardly ever barks, so I don't know what's going on. Hopefully my wife will handle it. Yeah, I'm on a webinar. She might as well bark. All right. So did any questions come in, Jerry? We good?
We're good.
Okay. So next, I think we're going to talk about pricing and or marketing strategies for you, the web developer. So this topic, obviously, we could hold a full day conference just on pricing and marketing strategies, but my goal really is just to cover what I would consider some of the more essential stuff, and then let it fuel hopefully your thoughts, and let you ask questions about it. So in terms of pricing is something that comes up, the question I get asked all the time, how do you price? What should I price a particular service at? And I tell you that that's a very, very hard topic to answer just with a one-line answer or remark. And I say that because of a number of things. Number one, your pricing is always going to be market sensitive. So what you can price for web design in Southern California, you may not be able to price in Topeka, Kansas. The market just may not bear the exact same pricing. So that's the first thing, is just pricing can be, it is market sensitive, and it can be definitely tied to geographic location. Of course, one of the cool things is you're not stuck at only providing services to your local marketplace, and that's a great thing as far as the internet is concerned. We have many members, customers of mine, who are offering services abroad. As far as me personally, I do have, most of our customers are local, but not all of them. I do have a client in New York. I'm in Southern California, so that's on the other side of the United States. Clients in South Carolina, rather. Trying to think if I have any other clients. Yeah, South Carolina and New York are my out-of-state clients primarily. I do have a client also in Arizona, so that's another out-of-state client. But most of my other clients are California-based, but they don't have to be. My wife actually has a client from India, so you just never know where you're going to pick up work or how people are going to hear about you. Some of those stories are a whole lot of fun. I remember scratching my head the first time my wife told me we got a client from India, and wondering how in the world that happened. So you just kind of never know how people are going to hear about you and your services, but if you're pricing yourself for your local market, my suggestion to you, of course, is to do some competitive research to try to figure out what your current market is doing, and I'll just show you a simplistic way of doing some of that here in just a second. Before we talk about that, before we go live to Google and just do some searching real quick, though, I do want to say this. Your pricing, besides the market sensitivity, besides what the market will bear, besides your geographic area, there are two other, or at least two or three other main key things that I want you to know and think about when you talk about pricing your services, whether it's for web design or any other service that you intend to offer. And that's basically this. Number one, your confidence level will have a direct relation or a direct correlation to your ability to get above average jobs in terms of pricing. The more confident you are, the more likely you are to get better pricing. That's simply because your clients will sense your confidence level, you'll exude confidence, and as a result of that, your clients will feel more comfortable getting a premium price quote from you, as opposed to someone who sheepishly says, well, I don't know, maybe I could do, if you're approaching the quotation process that way, you're already at a distinct disadvantage, because your client will sense the fact that you are not confident, and will be, of course, themselves nowhere near as confident to want to pay the pricing that you're asking. So that's the first thing. The only way to get over that really is to do more work. So whether that means you pick up more jobs initially to for lower pricing, just to get more jobs under your belt, but you need more confidence, however that works out for you. Some people are just incredibly confident even if they have no skills. It's just one of those things where it's an individual trait, but you need confidence. Number two, tied to that, obviously, you're going to be paid more if you ask for more. And that's a simplistic thing, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen very talented providers, because typically of confidence or lack of understanding in terms of what the market will bear, settle for pricing that's just typically astronomically low of what they should be pricing. So for example, in our marketplace, $2,000 for an 8 to 10 page business website built on an existing premium WordPress theme is very reasonable. It's not that it's low, it's not that it's high, but no one's going to. I shouldn't say no one. There are always those that will, but most smart business people are not going to fall over in their chair when you tell them that the minimum entry point for your basic business website package built on WordPress premium theme is $2,000, which is my pricing. That said, you'll see all sorts of people who walk into that same exact environment and only ask for $200 or $300. And of course, if you ask for $200 or $300, the likelihood that the business owner is going to say, you know what, that just sounds a little low to me. I really think I ought to pay you $500 or $1,000 or $2,000. That's just not going to happen. So one of the easy things in terms of pricing, when people say, how do you get that type of pricing? The first thing is you ask for it. You have to price at that particular level in order to obtain it. People are not going to just volunteer to pay you more than you're asking. So that's another thing to think of. And the third real important thing, and I can't stress this point enough, is you need to be seen as a trusted advisor to your prospect, to your client, not just as a service provider. So service providers are seen as basically a dime a dozen. If you just basically are just hanging your hat as just a web designer or just a graphic designer or just a commercial photographer, there's 100 web designers in our area. There's 100 commercial photographers. There's 100 graphic designers. I don't have to do business with you is the thought. I can do business with somebody else. You're just a dime a dozen. But if you instead position yourself as a trusted advisor, you're no longer just a web designer. You're a web marketing consultant, or you're a website development consultant, etc. You take yourself completely out of that same level with all of these other service providers, and you cause yourself to be this elevated individual who's no longer seen as just one of the dime a dozen. You're seen as someone who has not only just skills but knowledge and advice well above what they're going to get from other service providers. And I'm telling you, as part of even just going through this webinar series with Jerry and I, you do have way more information than most web designers in your area will. So some of the things to think about when you approach these types of businesses is you're going to have to come up with what separates you basically from the normal service provider. Is it customer support, which I'm hoping that's part of it? Is it just your understanding of the bigger picture, what we basically just talked about with mobile web design? Oh, this person says they can just build my site, on this responsive code, and I don't need a mobile site. Then the response then is, okay, well, I just want you to understand, and just like I just defined to you, that just because the layout happens to be responsive, happens to be something that will size to fit a screen, that doesn't necessarily mean that the overall end page is going to be mobile friendly. You have to consider, file size, of each page. You have to consider load times. You have to consider usability. You have to consider all these other things. Has your designer talked to you about those kind of things? Because just building a one-size-fits-all website isn't probably the best way to go. You really want to design something that not only looks nice, but actually functions as best as possible for your visitor. That's going to mean more to you as a business owner. It's going to help these people do more business with you. Has your web designer talked to you about those things? As soon as you get into those type of discussions, basically it's a consultative type selling process, which is what I personally use. You definitely are going to set yourself way above the average provider. The average service provider will not talk about those types of things for a couple reasons. Number one, most of them don't even have a clue about them. And number two, most of them don't have any real understanding about how to deal or how to just talk with a fellow business owner. And that's the way you should approach yourself. You are a fellow business owner. You're not just a service provider. You're a fellow business owner and a trusted advisor. And as soon as you kind of get into that mode when talking to clients, you're going to find a lot of resistance is going to disappear, and you're definitely going to command higher prices. So with that, let's go take a quick run over to Google. And if you're in another location, it might not be .com, might be .co.uk, etc. But one of the things that you can do is simply just type in, I don't know, website design and then your area. You see Los Angeles pops up, so we'll take a look at website design Los Angeles. All right. Initially, we're going to see a bunch of, obviously, the paid AdWords listings, the top and the right, and then we're going to see some of the organic listings as well. So if we take a look at some of these without actually clicking on them, you'll see over here we have $8.99 for custom web design. It says easy to self-update and manage. So obviously there's some type of a content management system involved in this particular. You might want to click on it, go basically take notes, copy down their pricing, their packages, copy down their feature sets, whatever they're basically saying about their services and how they've come up with their pricing. Basically just keep a running whatever, a Microsoft Word document, a text document, something that you can get an idea. Copy their URL for later study, etc. Make notes as to what you like or don't like about their website setup or the features that they've talked about or the things that they haven't talked about, etc. Over here, this third one, you see high-end web design. So they're immediately trying to segment themselves as people who are high-end. They're basically trying to weed out the low-priced individuals. So that's another thing to think about when you price your services, depending upon what market you want to reach. You can see that they're charging $5K plus, so $5,000 and up. WordPress, which you have to love the fact that they misspelled that with only one S. Flash and graphics. So right here, of course, the fact that they're saying Flash development tells me that they might create pretty, but they probably have problems with the actual functionality of things. Another thing I would just look into, see how they're presenting their offers, see what packages they might be presenting, copy any relative text into a file, just so you can, you keep just a running swipe copy. Not that I'm telling you to, go copy paste their content in yours, but just to keep a swipe folder in regards to what features or benefits they're relating to their visitor, how they're pricing their packages, how many packages are they offering, etc. Most web developers do have packages, not that you have to, but most do. And if you do, my recommendation to you is that you don't offer more than 3. If you offer a 4th, it should be kind of like a custom as designed, kind of a thing where there's no actual real price, at least not a high end or not a fixed top end listed. Typically, people like options, but at the same point, if you give too many options, that adds confusion, and the statement within copywriting or sales is the confused mind never buys. So you don't want to confuse people either. So typically, about 3 packages, a low, mid, and an upper end package are typically all that's required. But you can do that, without packages at all. You can just request that people contact you for a quote. That's entirely up to you. So obviously you can go through all of these individual listings as well. We'll go through the top one here just to take a look at the site itself. Okay, so we have a pretty nice looking site. It's obviously got a big dynamic slider going on, website development and mobile web, so this is a decent thing to look at, see what they have to say. But you get an idea of how they've laid out their site, and then of course, they've got some testimonials or portfolio kind of stuff, what we do, information on their technology and frameworks expertise, their social media fans, solutions for their business, etc. There's all sorts of stuff going on here. Yeah, this is okay. I'm not a big fan of just stuff that gets forced on me. I'd rather control the slider myself, but that's okay. When you go and start looking at like solutions, just typically, let's see what we're going to get. So solutions opens up down here, customer relation management, medical. So they specialize, it looks like, in certain niches, which many do as well. Not all, but many do. But anyway, just look through a site, find out what we do, see if there's some content. I'm not a big fan of dark backgrounds and other colored text, and this is really killing me. I just absolutely, personally, I hate this, but that's just me. You might love it. So web design, web application development, website videos. This gives you some other information on what we're going to talk about later in regards to what other things you might offer to clients outside of just web design. Videos becomes one. Mobile application development, instant messaging or SMS kind of stuff, Facebook, online marketing, branding and identity, software development. So kind of a full service kind of shop. Not personally, I don't like kind of just the content information stuff. It's all just very kind of generic, at least in this area. Maybe there's more stuff over in their technologies area, but I've been on the site longer than I want because I just can't stand the whole dark to light thing. But anyway, you get the idea. Basically go through some of the type sites that are in your area that you intend to serve. Make notes of what you do or do not like about their site, about their content, about their pricing, etc. These are all going to be good things for you when you go to create pricing and packages and write content for your own site. Yeah, Jerry.
I have a question from Sue, and it is, do you suggest posting prices on the website?
I do, but that's entirely up to each individual. So typically, if you're going to put out packages, you typically will have kind of pricing structures. That's entirely up to you. I would say that if you're going to put out pricing, the thing that you need to do is to make sure that your content, your on-page content, is well written and it becomes very, very obvious in terms of what separates you from everybody else. I can't tell you how much, basically, how important that is. Like I said, you don't want to basically position yourself as just another service provider. You need to position yourself as the trusted advisor, and that's going to come through not just in your face-to-face presentations. It should come across on your website as well. In other words, you could have an FAQ section. You could have all sorts of different ways to lay out the content, but what separates us from others? Why are we different? Is the kind of the thought process behind the content that you're going to create for our site. If the visitor recognizes, oh, you know what, this is different. You know, I've already seen 3 or 4 sites. I haven't necessarily have no background with this particular company, but this is different. You know, I'm over here. I'm just seeing just straight off, just fact-based content. Over here, I'm getting like educated. You know, there's actually consultative type content that says, you know, here are some of the things to think about when creating, you know, your website. Here are some of the reasons, you know, what makes us different. We're not just designers, you know, we're developers who consider not only the design and our clients' wishes, but we also consider functionality and making sure that the end result um, serves, you know, as many browsers and as many types of devices as best as possible, such that your, you know, visitors get a great user experience. We're also experts in website security, something that most other firms simply just completely overlook. And, you know, there's very real, you know, you're going to spend a decent amount of money investing into your website. You need to do business with someone who is going to take website security seriously. And as soon as you start talking about that stuff, I guarantee you, if you go through, you know, 50 of these pages, the likelihood that you're going to come up with some of that type of content is going to be very, very small on a percentage basis. So having that type of content on your site is going to basically make you stand out head and shoulders above the crowd. So as long as your content does that, then I don't think listing your prices is going to be an issue at all. If your content is like everybody else's, it's just, you know, quick little one-liners and that's it, and you have pricing, well then what's going to happen just as a natural byproduct of that, your visitors are going to make determinations based on price. You don't want people making determinations based on price. You want people making determinations based on value. And value is something way above price, and it can only be conveyed, of course, if you are adding that type of content that basically tells the website visitor why you are not like every other service provider in your area. Jerry, you have thoughts on that topic?
Just to agree with you.
Oh, wow. I was expecting you to say, nah, don't ever put prices on there. Okay. Any other questions on pricing strategies? Actually, I'm gonna.
Not right.
Okay.
Not right now.
Okay. Go ahead.
My pricing thing is like, would you go to a restaurant that you know? Would you prefer to go to a restaurant that has their prices on their website or not? And you know, and again, it's how well they sell themselves. The prices don't really matter, you know, as much. You know, I think putting the prices, to me, I prefer doing business with a company that's upfront about their pricing. That's just the way I am.
Yeah, I am too. It just seems it just seems more upfront. I mean, I know that that's obvious from the fact that you're looking at an actual price, but I don't mean just upfront in the fact that you can see the price. It just seems more transparent as far as what's going to happen. But then again, the downside can be, you know, when you do your market research, if you find that everybody in your local area is, you know, pricing custom web design at, you know, $4.99, and you go put out a $2,000 price point, you know, just pure price sensitivity is a real thing too. So if you're going to do that, you have to make sure that you position yourself as the individual who does all sorts of things that nobody else does in order to make sure that the value is so obvious, it's so strong that the price becomes less of an issue. Price is always going to be an issue to a point, but if you don't have that content that just oozes separation from you and everybody else in a good way, then pricing is going to be more of an issue.
Yeah, I just had two issues with pricing on products that were for developers online, and I ended up 2 years ago going through one of them pretty far, and then just recently went through one, and they didn't give the pricing, but they made it imply that it wasn't like ultra expensive. And when I got to it, it was $15,000 for one per seat, and the other one was $25,000 plus $2,500 a month. totally out of my ballpark, but they wouldn't talk price until we got into it. I wasted my time, I wasted their time. So that's my reason on why I like seeing prices up front. The match for the product was good, the match for the price wasn't. And I spent hours between these two companies, and just wasted their time. So
Right. And going back to that, you can see on the screen here, again, going back to this one live example here, high-end web design. That's specifically, they are trying to do what these other companies that Jerry just mentioned did not do. They are trying to give you a strong understanding that, hey, if you're not looking to pay $5,000 or more for a website, click on somebody else's listing. Don't click on ours.
Now, can I ask you a question that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, just because we're here?
Sure.
If I notice that they misspelled WordPress on high end, and that might be just to be fitting in everything on the line. I would have gotten back at that. But the top guy's got the word design misspelled. Now,
yeah.
From an ad standpoint, do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing, or they just goofed?
Hard to know exactly. If we look at my search query, we can see that it was website design, and you can see that I spelled it correctly. So one has to know, people do bid through AdWords, they do bid on misspellings. So the first question is, were they bidding on a misspelling? I'm not really sure if they are or not at this point, but it doesn't make sense because I didn't misspell it in my actual search query. To me, as soon as I look at this, my own natural gut reaction, even though I am a AdWords consultant, I do PPC management through AdWords for clients. Even though I know about bidding on misspellings, I look at this and it just seems, it seems, what the word is, it seems amateur, and it causes me to not want to click on that simply because to me it says, hey, if they're not going to be spend enough attention to detail to put good content in their ad, what's the likelihood they're going to put good content on my website or provide good code, etc. So I don't know whether they're doing it on purpose or not, but for me that's a detractor. You feel the same or different?
Okay, thanks for the little insight. I know it kind of took us off track here. I just, we're talking about marketing your company, and I just saw that. I'm like, what are you trying to do? Thomas asked, couldn't the word Disabin be dynamically inserted? And
yes.
It could be, except for I'm thinking it wouldn't be because you typed it correctly.
Right.
But if you typed it incorrectly, it could be a dynamic insert.
Right. When you look at AdWords, you'll know what some of the dynamic stuff is based on the keyword because of what's bolded. So website was one of my search queries, so website is here. Web was part of my search query, so it's here. Over here, we get web design. Design was part of it. Web design again, web design, etc. Same thing over here. They've gone ahead and highlighted designer, even though I went with design. But that gives you some clue as opposed to that. It's not likely that it was dynamically placed, but it is possible. Anyway, one other thing on pricing and quotation before we move. Let me see. Oh no, I actually have another page past this. It's just a small bit of content, but I used to in the past. Well, I've got a weird career history. Probably a lot of you do know that I was a deputy sheriff. I worked in law enforcement for just under 10 years. And I got injured in a training scenario, basically fighting with some simulated attackers back in 2000. And after a couple of surgeries and a couple of years of physical therapy, the department forced me out on a medical retirement in 2002. So I was way too young to be retired, but I got retired in 2002. And not being one that likes to sit around and do nothing, I started looking for stuff to do. Well, I come from a family history of residential construction. Almost all of my family owns their own business. They're almost all involved in the construction market in one way or another. So I have a lot of construction experience just because of the family in which I grew up on. So I've always had a passion and skill for woodworking. And after I left the Sheriff's Department, shortly thereafter, I went into business with a friend of mine who had an established custom cabinet shop. And yes, there is a point to this. I'm not just telling you about cabinetry and about that. The reality to that is, in addition to creating, designing, building, installing, etc., really high level cabinetry in our business, one of the other roles that I quickly took on was actually doing the sales, simply because I have a knack for it. So I'll tell you that one of the things that we developed in our cabinet business is something that I think translates perfectly for any type of service business, whether it's website design or AdWords management or anything else. And that's basically this. You will find that there's a certain segment of people that they always want to negotiate pricing. It's just they're hardwired to do it. If you tell them that the website's going to be $2,000, as soon as they hear it, even if that was a figure that in their head was totally reasonable to them, the first thing that's going to come out of those type of people's mouths is going to be, okay, well, how about we do it for $14.95 or some other figure. It just, they can't help themselves. They're just hardwired to want to negotiate price and to give you a figure less than what you just asked for. So you can operate your business any way that you would like, but I will give you my experience from selling a whole lot of custom cabinetry and a whole lot of other things too in terms of service. My suggestion is that you do not ever reduce your pricing for the same work. If you ever decide to reduce your pricing, you should also remove features, benefits, or basically reduce the level of work that you are willing to do. So here's an example. Your initial package for a small business, design, like I said, based on WordPress premium theme, etc., might be $19.95. It might be $14.95 in terms of obviously $1,500 or $2,000. Whatever your price is going to be, as a starting point, make sure that your content is descriptive, a site up to, X amount of pages, and make sure that it talks about what it includes. It includes design and it includes installation, some amount of training. It includes, security hardening. It includes these premium plugins, whatever it is that you're including that separates yourself from the other. I would make sure that you highlight that information. But in addition to that, make sure that there's a finite thing, up to 8 pages, up to 5 pages, up to 10 pages, whatever that happens to be for you. And another thing in regards to content, I would tell you that if you are not including your content at that price, and we don't, I would recommend that you make sure that that's obvious, that you list that, content extra. Content to be supplied by client or at an additional cost. Something along that lines. Make sure that your people's content comes up all the time. People just somehow obviously assume that just because you're a website designer means that you're going to be writing all their website content for them. And to me, that's ridiculous, but that's just the way that a lot of people think. So just think about that. But my point is this: if someone approaches you and says, "Hey, look, I want that package that you offered, but I want it for $14.95," then my point is, well, I appreciate the fact that you have a budget, and I'm totally cool with that. But here's the thing: obviously, I run a business, and I know my numbers, and I know what I need to make in order to make my business work, and I can't do that for $14.95. So if $14.95 is something that you're stuck at, or is that's basically something that you really have to have, then why don't we do this? Instead of me building 10 pages, I build 5, and instead of adding these 5 premium plugins that you have developer rights to that you can do legally, these other 2 probably might not necessarily be required for your particular applications, so instead of those 5, you get 3. You basically reduce the feature set, the benefit set, the amount of work that you are obligating yourself to provide in order to meet the budget. If you do that, a couple things are going to happen, generally speaking. Either A, they obviously become, number one, they become quickly understanding that they're not in the driver's seat. You're not just one of those persons that immediately someone says it's 2,000. No, I want it for 1,500. Okay, we'll do it for 1,500. That's not the place you want to be in as a business owner. You want to be in the position of kind of like a more retail market, where you walk into a retail establishment and you see a jacket on the rack and it's $300 for the jacket. You already know, at least in the United States where we're from, if you walk into a regular retail establishment and it's $300, it's $300. You're not going to be able to take the thing to the countertop and say, hey, I'm only willing to pay $150, and think that they're going to lower the price for you. It's just not. It's not reasonable. It's not done, at least in our U.S.-based culture. So if your culture is different, then obviously you're going to have to navigate within your particular culture set. But you get my point. If, however, you reduce, you say, yeah, I'm willing to be flexible. I'm willing to meet your budget at $14.95, but you have to understand that I can't do the same level of work. It will negatively impact my business and my family as a result. So how about we reduce the feature set? Once that happens, you'll either get them to take you up on it because price really was that important to them, and of course you're doing less work, so it's reasonable, or you'll get them to say, oh, okay, well, gee whiz, I really do want those extra 2 plugins, and I really do think I'm going to need a total of 10 pages for my site, etc. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do business at the $2,000 price range. Typically, one of those 2 things will happen. And of course, if they say, well, if you're not willing to come down in your price for what I want, then I'm out of here, then my opinion is that's not the client that you want anyway. For me, I would just let them go and move on to the next. But you'll have to make that determination for your own business. Last thing I'm going to say on pricing and marketing, unless there's extra questions on it, is basically you should look to get an in with people of influence. And basically what I mean is there's a lot of people out there, business owners is what I'm really referring to now, that already serve the marketplace that you're looking to serve. So if you're offering services to small business owners, for instance, and they don't have to do small business, you could offer them to medium-sized or big-sized, it's up to you. But we'll just take the example of those offering services to the smaller type business. Think of all the other business types that these businesses are already doing business with. For example, very frequently you're going to find that small business owners are going to a bookkeeper or an accountant. So there's one individual that's basically serving your same market. Now, they don't offer web design. They don't offer, probably graphic design or anything that you offer, pay-per-click management, but they serve the same marketplace that you do. Same thing goes for a lot of graphic designers. Not all graphic designers are web designers. If you find pure graphic designers in your area, that's a great a potential partner for you. Same thing with commercial photographers, maybe that specialize in commercial photography for business, possibly the head of your local chamber of commerce. If you have a local chamber of commerce and get active in it, go find out who the key players are. Those are the people that basically know everybody else, the people that are looked up to. Same thing, kind of in a more informal thing, you might find meetup groups in your area. Talk to those people, talk to the meetup group organizers, basically. If you have a business network like BNI or something in your area, you can get involved with them. And again, talk to the key people, the people that have been around and are respected. Anybody that serves or has connection with the market that you want to serve, they're already more seasoned. They've been in the business longer than you have. They have more connections than you do, etc. Those are the people that you want an in with. You want to get to know, to befriend, to be helpful to, etc. Because those people can be your absolute best source of leads. So it can either happen just as a natural result of just being friendly and you know being helpful to them. People will be helpful to you, or in the case of a more aggressive stance, the ability to basically partner with someone and say, look, this is the business I'm in. I'm looking to do business in this marketplace. I know that you have, you know, if you're a bookkeeper, I know that you have a lot of you know, business owners that are coming to you for bookkeeping services. Can I interest you in placing my cards on your desk, or my flyers on your desk, or sending out you know, my promotional material inside the same envelope along with yours to your email list, or your direct mail list rather. There's all sorts of ways to get creative about it, with the understanding that, hey, look, you know, I'll put a referral code on the back of this thing, and if anybody does business with me, you'll get 10% of the sale. Those types of basically joint ventures can be extremely lucrative, and they can keep you basically just loaded down with decent paying jobs without having to do a whole lot in terms of sales and marketing. So if that's something that you are not necessarily good at, something to think about is the ability to basically go in and find the people of influence, build a relationship with them, and then try to make an arrangement such that those people basically start becoming your lead pool. So that's it on the terms of marketing and sales. Do you have any questions, Jerry, on that? Or if not, we're going to move on to outsourcing.
Just does your 1995 website offer come with rich graphics, etc., given your background and experience?
Explain rich graphics.
Yeah, I'm not waiting. George.
So basically what we do, and I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but what we do is we provide what I would call a customized website. It's not a custom website. A custom website to us is basically one that we start with a complete brand new design in terms of graphics and layout, and then we start from that, and then we code it, and then we basically build it. That's an entirely different animal. For us, that would be a $5,000 and up job. But if you're talking about building it on a premium WordPress theme platform, then yeah, we do include customization graphics, graphic elements that then customize it to their particular application that makes theirs different than anybody else's. But it's the coding really behind everything that is predominantly the same. It's more of a graphical switch out than a coding switch out. Does that answer your question, George?
He said yes. Thanks
Awesome.
for the question, George.
Awesome. Anything to add, Jerry? You do anything else in addition for marketing?
No, I mean, I'll be honest, it's one area that I'm really weak in. So that's why I partner with people that have that area that has strength, and then I use my strengths, which are developing and support and keeping things online and stuff like that. So.
So what type of people do you typically partner with? I know I think one of them is your brother, right?
No, like my brother, I've done with him. It's been typically people that want to do sales, that they need a job done, but they don't have the skills to actually do the site itself. I just got a whole group of people that are that do telecommunication sales to businesses, and small businesses, like small things, and so I show them the tap-to-call websites. So they're interested in picking those up and running them as an additional service with their sales, and then they'll turn around to me and partner with me to actually do all the tech and everything else.
Awesome. So Jerry just kind of brought up something that I didn't specifically touch on, kind of in a roundabout way, but not specifically. Jerry's basically, and I don't want he didn't mention the specific financial arrangement, but kind of come up with a commissioned type salesperson, whereby they go out and actually do the sale. Probably, unless Jerry wants to correct me, they're probably acting on the front end as the actual provider. Their clients probably have no understanding or no knowledge of Jerry specifically. Is that true?
Yeah, that's the way I have it with this group. Some people are just passing it off like a referral fee, that kind of thing, but this particular group is going to brand it under their particular names. They run as they are basically doing the same thing for telecommunications.
Yeah.
So they resell telecom, they resell utilities and stuff like that. And so this is just an add-on, and I will actually host it and run it and everything else, totally like white label at my level, so that they won't know, who's actually doing it. And so I leverage off of their sales abilities, and I know what my costs are, and we've worked out an agreement for basic packages.
Cool.
Which are in the price range that you mentioned is what I went for, and in this particular case, if they want to discount it, they can discount out of their side of the profit. So that was how one of them asked, "What happened? Can we get lower pricing?" I said, "You can charge whatever you want. This is what you charge me." So, and some are going to charge higher. Some of them think that in their geographical area that even the prices that we just mentioned for their businesses is kind of low.
Yeah.
So, and for me, I just felt I know what my costs are. I would love to make extra money, but if they are confident in their sales ability, they can go. So, but then some of them did come back and wanted to really cut it down to basically increase their profit. And I said, I have certain needs and stuff, requirements. But I think it's a good win-win because I don't have to go out and they're hitting thousands of businesses, and I don't have to end up with any of that. So that's my particular angle of behind the scenes. I partner with somebody that's really good. I have somebody that does graphics. I don't do graphics. These guys are doing sales. I'm staying away out of the sales area right now.
Yeah, he's doing exactly what I talked about at the beginning. He's being a smart business owner. He's working to his strengths and outsourcing everything else. And that brings us to the next topic, outsourcing. So when it comes to outsourcing, we've already talked about, PSD to HTML, code my concept. If you are, actually getting custom graphics, coded, if that's not your strength, then my suggestion is that you either use a firm like that or you find a talented outsourcer to do that kind of work for you. Probably Jerry's going to have some other recommendations for us here, but I'm going to just show you some, probably a lot of these you've heard of. There's Odesk.com. Hopefully it'll come up. It says it's sending the request, but it's taken for a while. Okay, so Odesk.com is one particular place that you can go looking for outsourced providers, basically independent contractors that you're going to use on either a project basis or on an ongoing basis, entirely up to you. I have several friends that use Odesk a lot. I have not posted a job personally on Odesk, so I can't give you specific information in regards to a lot of the back end, how it specifically works. One of the things that I do know that's kind of interesting about Odesk, different than many others, is that each of these providers have some type of there's some type of tech hooked up to their computer such that it keeps track of basically their time in regards to the project, and you as the project creator have the ability to see kind of snapshots as to what these individuals are doing or not doing for you, which is kind of a cool little thing, especially if you're someone who really likes lots of information in regards to project management. But I've had a bunch of friends have really good success with Odesk, and you can do a lot of things through them, not just the tech work, content writing, etc. A lot of stuff can be done through Odesk. So that's just one place that at least I know some friends that have had really good success with. Elance, of course, everybody's talked about Elance forever. Elance is another place that, wow, really loading slow, is kind of similar in terms of Odesk in that you can find a lot more than just the tech stuff. So you can see here programmers, designers, writers, people for administration, marketers, consultants, accountants, even mobile developers. So there's all sorts of possibilities looking for a provider over at Elance. Unless they've changed, Elance does not have the kind of tech that Odesk does in terms of monitoring the actual individual's work, but you will find the ability to look through their job postings, get the ability to look at the feedback basically left for them. You can see that this particular individual, you see their skill set listings in terms of technology, has a 4.5-star rating out of 25 jobs, etc. And a lot of them have even more information. They'll tell you even their yearly sales to date, etc. So you kind of see how many people are particularly going with that provider. Most of these kind of work on kind of an auction basis by which you post your project. Basically be as descriptive as you can in regards to what it is that you need done. And then these individual providers that feel qualified to do your work, they basically come back and post what they would charge you to do that particular job, and then allow you to pick from the individuals who are making their services available to you. And these types of sites, they go on and on and on. Get a freelancer, I think it's .com. All right, looks like it now has rolled over to freelancer.com rather than getafreelancer.com. I have actually used them a couple of times and had good success with what now is freelancer.com. Very similar in terms of kind of the whole Elance setup. There's a little video here that shows you how it works. I'm just giving you some individual thoughts in regards to where you might go to look for a technology provider. You can also look to forums. If you look at the Warrior Forum, you'll see that there's the Warriors for Hire section. The Digital Point forums also have a number of different sections for technical work, for content, etc. So those are places that you can certainly look to for technical providers. And I'm going to show you two others. I'm going to first show you onlinejobs.ph. Not sure how many of you are aware of this particular site, onlinejobs.ph, which is the country extension for the Philippines. This site is owned by a marketer who's pretty well known, John Jonas, and John has specific expertise in regards to recruiting individuals who live in the Philippines. And my full-time programmer that I hire came from this site. He does live and work in the Philippines, and this is the portal by which I found him. What I like about this particular site, and there's a number of things that I like about it, but you can do a search for categories and skills. So maybe you're looking for someone to do graphics or webmaster type stuff. You can search by category. You can do searches by a number of different filters, basically, even search by employee types or salaries, etc. But when you find someone, I guess we should just kind of do a quick search and just see. So let's see, we do English. Maybe we're looking for a content writer. So category English writing, skill level. I want someone who's at least an expert. Date, is the project short term or is it long? You can leave it at any if you'd like, or maybe you have a short-term project. Maybe you just need some content for a website. So it's just a short-term project. Employment type, you want full-time or part-time, we'll just leave it at any. Monthly salary range, we'll just leave it as any, and we'll just see what comes up. I'll click search. They're going to give you the ability to search without having to create an account or without having to pay anything. That's basically how this particular site works. And you're going to get listings. We found 368 results, 368 different providers through onlinejobs.ph who are willing to, or basically met that criteria. So You can click on individual titles to go to view the actual profile. You can see where for writing they've determined that they are an expert. Well, how this comes up for this particular site, which I think is really cool and very different from a lot of others, is that the individual provider does not just state, you know, hey, I'm an expert. So you might have someone who knows nothing about it. Oops. You may have somebody who knows nothing about writing, but you know they claim to be an expert. That's not how this works. John's company actually gives testing to each one of the individuals who want to provide services on their site, and they test them in every single area that they want to be rated at, and based on their standardized testing, the company, onlinejobs.ph, makes the determination whether they're an expert or not. This is not something that's being determined by the provider. It's being determined by the company, onlinejobs.ph, as a result of their standardized testing. So just understand that. It's one of the reasons why I like it. Well, I like it for a lot of reasons. I like it because I've had very good experience. I've outsourced to many different countries. I've outsourced to India. I've outsourced to some of the Russian type countries. I don't even know how to state that anymore, but basically, whether it's a province or an area within Russia, I've outsourced to the Philippines. I've outsourced to the UK. I've outsourced a bunch to providers inside the United States, and quite honestly, I've had pretty good experience across each one of those specific areas. And I don't know if it's because I've been lucky or if it's because I do a lot of due diligence when I'm interviewing people. I give very specific, very clear, very detailed instructions, and I think as a result of that, I definitely get I weed out those people that really can't do the jobs, and I get better quotes and people that actually can do the work. But I like using people that live in the Philippines for a number of reasons. I find them typically, they're very accommodating, they're very kind typically. Most of them have above average English skills, at least in terms of writing. They may or may not be easy to understand in speaking or in oral communication, but of course if I'm looking for a writer, I'm really only interested in the fact that they can read and write strongly in English. So you get an idea of what they're interested in. You can look at their title. You know, I have a good foundation in the English language if I will be asked to produce an article or any. And it's not exactly perfect, but you know, you get an idea. You can see the desired salary range. This is in a unit of measurement called PHP, a Philippine peso. You can see that they're interested in 15,000 PHP for a month. And if you do the math here real quick, it says right now, and it's an approximation, it fluctuates, so don't think that that's an exact, but 15,000 quickly divided by 45, you get an idea that this person will work full-time, meaning 40 hours a week for you for a full month for $333, which to someone like me in the United States seems like an extremely small amount. But what I want you to understand is when you're thinking about outsourcing, don't think that you're taking advantage, because this is actually a very strong wage inside of the Philippines. And of course, the pricing here is not being dictated by the company. It's being stipulated by the individual provider. So the individual provider has the ability to ask for whatever it is that they want. Actually, I see hours a week here is 20 hours plus. I'm not sure why that came up since I think we put in any, that's why. So I misspoke just a second ago. Make sure that you look at the hours per week to know what you're getting. But basically, you can get a content writer for a full month, basically for 20 plus hours a week for $330. It just depends upon how quality the content is. And if you go into any of these, like if you're looking for SEO or social media optimization, looks like SEO optimization and content, etc. Just looking to see if I can. The top one was probably the best one, just specifically on writing, at least without me going through a bunch. If you click on the actual listing, you can go to the profile page itself. You may see an image of the person. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. You get an idea how old they are, their gender, what their education level is. She has a bachelor's in psychology, etc. You get a skills summary, and then at the bottom or underneath is all the specific ratings that are the tests basically that they took. And you will find some others where it says no experience. This is in cases where basically they didn't take the test. They didn't take the test because they had no desire to be rated in that particular category anyway. So in all the tests that they took, they'll get a rating level, and you'll quickly get an idea as to whether that meets your criteria or not. So let's go to, let's see, English. So you get an idea. Most of these are going to be this way. Their writing capability in English are going to be stronger than their ability to speak, but 3 stars typically means you're going to be able to have conversation with this individual via voice as well. So just another place to look at. Lastly, if we go over to everybody's favorite place for cheap stuff, Fiverr. Fiverr is definitely a place where you can get stuff done and get it done very cheaply as well. My only recommendation to you is that you be really careful to look through all of the ratings really carefully before you give anybody real access to your servers, your client servers, etc. Fiverr is not typically a place where I'm going to go looking for someone that's highly qualified in tech stuff. Not that you can't, but I'm just always kind of uneasy when I know that a job, probably should be a $100 job or a $200 job, and someone says they're going to do it for $5, and of that they only get 4 because Fiverr takes the other dollar. That just makes me really uneasy in regards to whether or not the person's going to do quality work and I'm going to be able to trust them. At the end of the day, your name is going to be, you're going to be attached to the end result. So if you hire a provider and they mess things up, it's your reputation on the line with your client, not theirs. So just, be cautious. Do your best due diligence in regards to looking through a variety of providers before you make the determination. Don't always just, base your own individual business decisions on pricing. Frequently you will find that, the lowest price isn't the best deal, you get better value other places. So in terms of content, you can use content over here at Fiverr.com. Of course, outsourcing content is a lot safer than outsourcing the technical aspects of things. I'm going to point out just a couple of other websites real quickly. iWriter is one that I've used a number of times with pretty good results. This particular site is owned by Brad Callen's iWriter.com, and I like their application. Their actual project flow is actually really good, much better than most I've used in terms of how you submit the content to them to get jobs written and produced. So this is one place that you might look at. The pricing is very, very reasonable. They have different pricing in terms of the variety of length. You might just need a short blog post. You might need a more full-length article, etc. And you can pay a premium to use one of their premium writers as well. But even then, the pricing is very realistic. If you're looking for more high-end content, you have a more demanding kind of a client, you might look to Guru.com. Typically, you're going to find specialists basically in areas. So if you're needing content for a chiropractic website or some specialty type thing where you're not looking for just an individual who can just write the English language, do a little bit of market research and just spit out an article, you might look to a more premium provider. Same goes for hiring college students. You can very frequently find college students through Craigslist who are very, very competent in writing and use them as well. So that's pretty much it in regards to outsourcing. The last thing that I have basically on my list today is a little bit of just a discussion of revenue streams. So as someone who's providing basically services to a business owner, you might want to consider the fact that while you can certainly just offer web design services, and you could just specialize in web design services that are really niched. I mean, you could only do WordPress and only for desktop, no mobile, etc. You can really niche yourself down, or you can decide to expand a little bit and say, no, we'll get into the mobile marketplace, or we'll get into other aspects. And that's where I just want to talk to you just a teeny bit about what other revenue streams are available to you, some of the things that you may not have thought about. So for us in our business, graphics play a big part of that. So as a small business owner, they frequently need graphics for a whole lot more than just their websites. So they might need brochures, they might need business card design, they might need logo design, they might need, who knows, it could go as far as we have done vehicle graphics, so shipping truck, graphics that go on shipping trucks, or full vehicle wraps as they're called, graphics that get wrapped around an entire vehicle for promotional reasons. There's all sorts of abilities to get work in terms of graphics. So if you make that one of your available options, you have the opportunity basically to get work. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, I'm not a graphic designer, and that's really where kind of Jerry and I were just talking about just a minute ago. You don't have to be. You don't have to be a graphic designer to offer graphic marketing services. When that comes up, obviously, then you become basically the project manager. And as that's the case, you obviously need to know what kind of prices you can get for something prior to pricing it. So just a quick example. Yes, you can find providers on Fiverr to do a simple logo for $5, and that might suit your client just fine. I'm going to just show you Logo Nerds. I think I've showed this before. LogoNerds.com. The individual that owns this site is also an active warrior on the forum. And if we look at order, you can see that they have 3 packages. How interesting. This is just very common. So depending upon what the client needs, if they just need a web-ready logo, you can see that this company will actually develop 3 different logo concepts, free revisions, meaning that when your client says, I kind of like this change or that change, they'll actually do it for free, which is not frequently done at this pricing. Let me just tell you that right now. So for $27, you can get a web-ready logo with 3 different concepts and free revisions, and you can see that their delivery is fast too. This could easily be priced anywhere between $100 to $200 for this level package. So on your side, you charge your client $100 to $200. You get their information in regards to what they're looking for. You supply it over to Logo Nerds, and then they basically provide you with the concepts that you then basically present to your client itself, and you just allow Logo Nerds to do the work, and you just act again as the project manager. The next package up, you see that this is not just web ready, but it's also print ready, so they give you a higher quality logo that can then be used for business cards or letterhead, etc. 6 different concepts and free revisions, etc. for $47. This is, for us in our business, this is an absolute minimum of a $300 project. Typically for us, logo development is kind of on the $300 to $500 minimum kind of a range. So you just kind of get an idea as far as what you can potentially get the service for and then turn it around to your clients. You provide a service to them. Most of them have no idea, where to go or what's even possible. So you provide the value to them in terms of handling the project, similar to the way a contractor does with, a general contractor does with subcontractors. It's the same business type process. Using a actual company for this type of work can be safer than using a complete freelancer, only because it's more likely that you're going to get delivery times executed and free revisions, etc., in a timely manner, as opposed to using a freelancer. Not to say that you can't find great freelancers for graphics, you can, but it can be a little safer, especially as you're starting out, to use an actual company provider for these type of things. Other things to think about might be promotional items. Discountmugs.com. It's kind of got a funny name to it. You think it's all about making mugs, and I guess that's probably how they started, but you can literally buy just about any promotional item through them: calculators, custom USBs, pens, pretty much you name it. If it's a promotional item, this place probably has it. I've done business with them for quite a while, and I've been very happy with their pricing, and I've been very happy with their service. So discountmugs.com is a great place if you're talking to a client and they want to do some promotional type work. You can say, hey, we can facilitate that. Obviously, there's the potential for both graphic design needs and in actually producing the actual product itself, and there is a very strong ability to make a good amount of money using a service like Discount Mugs. Kind of the same thing goes, I'm not going to go to other websites, but same thing goes for us. We actually do a decent amount of embroidery for clients. So maybe they want custom polo shirts with their company emblem, or one of my wife's clients and friends owns a dance company studio, and they have all sorts of dance wear that gets embroidered with custom graphics for her particular dance studio. There's all sorts of the ability to do that kind of thing. Of course, in the online space, you can do all sorts of things, from Facebook pages and Twitter designs to YouTube channel designs to video creation. We talked in the last webinar about reseller hosting and how to create basically recurring revenue by hosting sites for clients. And even if you don't do that, even if you decide to not touch the reseller hosting aspect at all, and that's perfectly fine that you don't, sign up for one of the hosting company's affiliate programs, and if you're going to allow your client to buy new hosting through you, give them your link to buy from. Just the other day, I opened up a new account through Jerry's provider. Jerry really likes a hosting company called Liquid Web, and I'm probably going to be moving a lot of my business stuff over to them, and already moved one element over to them already. And just as a result of Jerry giving me his affiliate link when I went and purchased my new hosting account, Jerry made an immediate $100. And if you think about that, times 4 or 5 clients in a month, you have the ability to make a significant amount of income just by that alone. Same thing with domains. You might want to supply an affiliate link for domain names, or be a domain name reseller yourself. Autoresponders. This is one that I think a lot of people overlook. For me, I use Aweber is my personal autoresponder service, and the cool thing about that is I don't pay anything for Aweber. Now you think, well, how do you do that? Well, I do pay, but the reality is I've signed up enough clients through my affiliate link that I actually make more from my affiliate commission than it costs me annually for my autoresponder account myself. So in effect, I've allowed my clients to subsidize my own autoresponder service. So the more creative you get, the more ability you're going to come up with revenue streams that make sense. Just understand that I'm not saying that you need to go provide, you need to start doing graphics, or you need to start doing, obviously don't go buy an embroidery machine, start doing embroidery. Just you have these abilities to, you're already in connection with business people, and they need a lot more than just web design services. So if you make yourself available to those kind of things, you'll start getting business as a direct result. And of course, going back to something I said earlier in regards to being the trusted advisor, when you are seen as the trusted advisor, you can expect that your clients are going to be asking you specifically for your advice. Hey, I'm about to create a promotion on this particular thing, and I was thinking about getting some promotional pieces made. Do you have any knowledge of that? Yeah, I can help you out with that. What were you looking for, etc. Is those types of things that are going to make they're going to enhance your perceived value to your client, and they're going to make you more money through the long haul. So with that, Jerry, I have finished all of my content. you have any questions, take a few minutes. I know we have a in-house launch to get to here in a few minutes too, so I can't go real long today. But
somebody just asked about 99 Designs. It just happens to be a logo site that takes it takes it more of a contest type thing where you have kind of almost like a reverse auction where a whole bunch of people will attempt to make a logo within your guidelines and try to get
your business,
try to win your business. And they've been branching out, and as you can see, there's other graphics and designs. So, but they do promote the logo design. The one thing about using them to resell, though, and like if you're for your client, is 99 Designs loves to promote when somebody wins. So it's kind of not as hidden as going to, some other thing, because you're basically putting it on the internet and everybody's trying. It's fairly open process. So if you're gonna do this, understand that it's not a hidden process like outsourcing to somebody doing it.
Yeah. So 99 Designs is a different model platform. They don't call it outsourcing, they call it crowdsourcing. So it basically kind of works in a different way if you're not familiar with 99 Designs. Rather than posting a project and letting people say, I'm willing to do it and for this amount, and then selecting someone to actually do the work, these people actually go to work right out of the gate and start submitting work to you without actually being paid anything or being selected, and you basically have the ability to then choose through a variety of designs or whatever it is that you've posted the project for and select a provider. So it can be good in terms of, you can get a whole lot more people out there doing stuff for you, and you're only responsible, technically, you're only responsible to pay for the person that you select. I will say that just from a standpoint of kind of standard fare, a lot of people do also pay providers that they don't select. A lot of times people will send money to the second and third runner-ups that they've chosen just to thank them for their time. So just there's kind of some cultural things that you kind of want to know when you're doing work for 99 Designs or other crowdsourcing type things. But it is, like Jerry just said, it is an entirely different model, and it is much more kind of public in regards to what project you're trying to post.
Well, I've seen really good results. I'm not trying to downplay.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely.
Different model, but yeah, it's. I actually follow them on Twitter. They actually post when people win, results. And some of the stuff is, it's professional level. It's not Fiverr level, so it's a difference. We have another question. What can I expect to pay a full-time programmer? Depends on how bad you want me.
And no, he's not available full-time.
No, I'm not.
Let's see. Well, the answer that Jerry just said, it depends, is like, that could be the understatement of the century. So it's going to depend upon everything. Where is that provider located geographically? Obviously, Jerry and I are both in Southern California, and the cost of living here is very, very high. So you can't expect someone to, work for pennies on the dollar, work for the same level that a Filipino a programmer is willing to work, just simply because if Jerry quoted you the same price that I pay my full-time programmer in the Philippines, he couldn't eat. He couldn't feed his family. So that's not. It's going to be very, very tied to geographic location. In addition to that, it's like anything else. We've already talked about pricing your own services. You're going to find programmers who are very non-confident. They're very they lack confidence in terms of what they really believe that they're worth, and you might find top-level coders who significantly underprice themselves, and you're going to find average coders who are pricing themselves at expert times 10 levels. I will tell you that for myself personally, for my own full-time coder based in the Philippines. We're talking full-time, 40 hours a week. I'm paying roughly $600 a month for him. I do have a special arrangement with him just because of the type of guy I am. I also do give him um, periodic and very routine bonuses when things that he's worked on has done well. And it's something that most employers of Filipino outsourcers do not do. And so I've garnered a level of relationship with my own provider that you could offer him, well above what I pay him just as a base, and he wouldn't take it simply because he knows that the upside with me is significantly stronger than the upside with someone else who's just going to give a base rate and nothing else. So there's just different ways to approach it, but that gives you at least some thought.
Okay, and yeah, he was asking specifically about the Philippines. So
okay, yeah, I would say typically you're looking for a top level coder full time. On the low end, you're looking at about $500 to $600. Very easily in the $750 to $800 range, and probably as much as we'll say $1,000 a month. But you'd be hard pressed to have to pay more than $1,000 US a month to even a top level coder over at onlinejobs.ph.
And the one thing to remember is $1,000, like Kevin was saying, for me in Southern California is a lot different than someone in the Philippines.
Oh yeah, my coder even at the level I'm paying him is he's living very well. Right. He's very happy to work for what I'm paying him.
So and on that flip side, if you overpay, there's also other consequences. So don't think you're doing somebody a great thing by paying him, 15, 20 times the rate just because you can, because it'll set them up to expecting it. Yeah. I just have found the people that have done that have had bad experiences with it. Build a good rapport with whoever you go with, pay reasonable rates, be fair, understand their environment. I mean, I have people come to me wanting me to do things for either free or for $5 to $10 that require a few days' work, and I can't do that. So if you want to find it, George asked, what do I expect from my graphics person and deliverables and stuff? I have a very good friendship with my graphics person. I've actually known him before he was doing all the graphics, so it's a little different, my rapport with him, as opposed to somebody that you wouldn't necessarily know or whatever. Basically, we've known each other for years and stuff. So a lot of what he does is just, I ask him, I need this. He does it. We fill it in with the billing, and then I make sure that he gets a percentage of it. Depending on what the project is, it might be he might get more or less. Sometimes he'll also come in and just say, I don't like that, whatever I'm doing, and he'll change it and hand it to me and not expect to be paid. But I mean, it's a different kind of environment. Again, it's the rapport. The big thing is just get somebody that you're happy with and you like the look and the feel and you can communicate with. To me, graphics is a bigger thing than knowing programming. I don't do graphics, but that's what everyone looks and sees. You see the 99 Designs logo. If that's done wrong, that's what everyone sees. I do all the stuff behind the scenes, and I can make more mistakes than my graphics guy can, and people won't notice typically.